can hear you being quiet, Mom.
I hope I didn't ice your game, man.
No one my age says those words in that order.
It's just hard to see my little man not being my little boy all the time.
Yeah.
For years, I've been taking care of this little boy. Making sure he is loved, that he feels like he belongs wherever he wants to be. He wants to go out into the world and do great big things.
Not bad, kid.
And what I worry about most
I love you, Miles.
is they won't look out for you like us.
Miles! Want to get out of here?
Wherever you go from here, you have to promise to take care of that little boy for me. Make sure he never forgets where he came from. And he never doubts that he is loved. And he never lets anyone tell him that he doesn't belong there. You gotta promise, Miles.
I promise.
Who do you think you are? Really?
We are supposed to be the good guys.
We are.
Welcome back to the Cinema Club podcast. My name is Christopher Amick, and I'll be your host for today's episode. The Cinema Club is like a book club, but for movies. Every episode, Nick Leach or myself invite one member of the Cinema Club to be a co-host for the episode, who will choose the movie or television show, and join Nick or myself on the podcast to talk about the film or episode. Today, we are going to be covering Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And tonight, I am joined by Tim and Tasia. Super excited to have both of you guys here again. We covered the first film a few months back, and we had a great time doing so. That was one of the first episodes of the Cinema Club that I was heading on my own at the time. So hopefully my editing skills and everything have gotten better since that time.
I'm sure they have, Chris.
I appreciate your faith in me, Tim. But yeah, with that being said, three of us really enjoyed the first film and were hyped for the second film. And Tim, I think you wrote me and you were like, hey, we got to cover the second film. We did the first film first, obviously. Now we're here on the second film. But just share a little bit about your love for film, but then love for this film specifically, if you can.
Oh, yeah. Thus far, up to this point in the year, Across the Spider-Verse is the movie of the year. Bar none, it is absolutely hands down the movie of the year. I enjoyed the hell out of it in theaters. It's thus far my favorite theater experience thus far this year as well. Because sometimes your favorite movie isn't necessarily your best theater experience, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I
But
hear you.
this one was one of my favorite theater experiences in addition to being my favorite movie of the year. The first one, when I watched it in theaters, I was like, it's a pretty good movie. But it really clicked for me on the rewatch. And all three of us can agree that the first one is one of the most rewatchable movies of all time because there is so much going on. You pick up new things every time you watch it with the attention to detail and everything. So this movie takes that, but injects it on steroids and is phenomenal.
Totally agree. And Tasha, did you get to catch it in the theaters?
No, I never did.
Okay.
You know me, procrastination till the day I die. So no, never did end up going into theaters. It was always, oh, we'll go next week, we'll go next week. And it never happened. So watching it yesterday was actually my first time watching it.
Oh,
Damn.
wow.
And I somehow managed to escape every single spoiler, every single one. Don't know how. I wasn't even intentionally trying to avoid anything. I just somehow didn't see anything. And I'm so damn glad.
Oh, me too.
Because
For those of you who can't
oh.
see, I am clapping right now quietly so I don't overtake the podcast. But yes, I am very glad because this is the one movie that you don't want to watch unspoiled unless you like spoilers.
Yes, I had actually texted a friend and I was like, I'm watching the new one tonight. And they were like, do you want me to be a good friend and tell you to have a good time? Or do you want me to say anything? And I was like, shut up. Do not say a single word. And as soon as over, I was like, you tell me a good friend because, oh my gosh, if you told me, I would have never forgiven you.
Yep.
No,
Needed it
yeah,
to
it's
be
a
experienced.
absolutely. Yeah, with that being said, spoiler warning to anybody that's listening and for some reason clicked on this episode that hasn't yet watched this awesome film. But yeah, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is an American animated superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. The film is a sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which we did previously cover on the Cinema Club. And so it's the second film of the planned trilogy in the Spider-Verse saga. The film was released earlier this year on May 31st internationally and on June in the United States. And diving here into the plot. So we start out on Earth 65, a couple of months after the destruction of the Collider. Gwen Stacy is struggling to live up to the expectations of her father, who does not know that she is Spider-Woman. He is hunting her after mistakenly believing that she caused the death of her best friend. One night, Gwen heads over to the museum after hearing reports of an intruder, only to run into a Renaissance-themed vulture that comes from an alternate universe. Spider People Miguel O'Hara and Jessica Drew arrive using portal-generating watches and subdue the vulture. In the aftermath, Gwen reveals herself to her father, who is distraught and attempts to arrest her. Drew suggests to a reluctant O'Hara that Gwen join the Spider Society, which he begrudgingly accepts. The three then leave Earth 65.
This was actually one of my favorite parts of the movie because we get to see a side of Gwen that we have not seen yet. And I really like that. And also, starting the movie off with Gwen and not Miles is a statement. Miles is the main character still, but starting off with Gwen is unexpected and completely subverts every expectation. And I am here for it.
Oh, yes. Same. Very not what you would expect. And like with the first one, anything you don't expect, they do it so delightfully. It's
Yes. Also, the art style in Gwen's universe, because as with the first movie, every character from a different universe is a different art style. So the artwork in Gwen's universe might possibly be my favorite in the entire movie. I really like the way everything looked in that one. There were some scenes where like the background was intentionally blurry, but it worked. I'm like, why is that blurry? But why does it work so well? Don't know how the writers did it. We know how. Well, as we discussed in the first movie, they hand drew everything and they computer generate everything and then they melded the two together. But how they kept doing that and making each universe look unique is mind-boggling.
Yeah, instantly, as soon as that movie starts, you're blown away by the visuals. And
Yeah.
like you were talking about, Tim, in Gwen's world, the usage of the warm red and pink tones and the blue, the scene that comes to my mind, especially that I really love in Gwen's world here, is when Gwen hugs her dad in the beginning. And that's a great use of visually showcasing emotions that we can see in an animated film that we don't get to see in a live action film, because that room is all blue. And then as soon as she hugs her dad, we then have that pink red color.
Holy crap, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Ooh.
But yeah, the visuals in here are phenomenal. And I was going to ask you about this too, more on the audio side of thing. The opening scene in my movie theater, which was an AMC Prime theater, did have some issues with the beginning of scene of Gwen playing the drums, which I did look into, and it was an actual issue with the AMC Prime specific theaters, where basically her audio track could barely be heard over her drum set, which I thought was on purpose. So I was
Oh,
training
that's
to
funny.
hear Gwen over these major drums going on. And then it's only after the fact that I realized, oh, that wasn't supposed to be like that. It was a sound mixing issue that they did resolve pretty early on in the theatrical run. But Sarah and I went and saw this on my birthday, opening night, June 1st. So it's a Thursday.
Beautiful.
Birthday present ever.
Oh, it was awesome. I absolutely loved it.
You're a lady, right?
Yes, for those
Okay,
that don't know,
just
Sarah's my
making sure.
wife.
Okay, yes.
yes. I was like, hey, let's do something low key. It's a Thursday. Let's go see this movie. Yeah, she loved it too. So it was great.
Indeed. I saw it in a Marcus IMAX Super Screen,
Okay.
so I did not have that issue. However, I will be discussing audio issues with the movie later on, but that's going to be later on in the podcast. We'll get to it when we get to it, though.
Okay. I'm definitely interested to hear that.
Yes. Also, the eyebrow piercing from the first movie and everything should have given away, but her being in a punk band is not surprising in the slightest. Like, the
Yeah.
eyebrow piercing did start with the punk movement, so that should have given the audience a clue where she was going with that. But it makes me love her even more because, as Chris knows, I am beyond obsessed with music.
And she quits the band. She quits those punks.
Very true, she does. And I was sad to see it, but at the same time, I get it because emotional turmoil is real.
Yes.
It was a true teen angst moment, that's for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Before we move on, though, can we just give a shout out for making the vulture look so freaking cool?
Yeah.
That vulture specifically.
They made that work.
They did. Making this boring brown look super cool and interesting. The rest of the colors, and it still looked great and fit in perfectly, is, again, mind-boggling. I'm going to be saying that every other sentence this movie because it is mind-boggling. But if this movie does not win a fucking Oscar, we riot for the visual effects. Oscar for visual effects. If it does not win an Oscar, we riot.
Win Oscar, not even be nominated. Win.
Oh, it has to win. This movie wins.
Okay.
Yeah.
For best.
We'll see how that pans out in a few months. No, but I
It's
agree.
just-
The visuals, you can say it all day in this film, but they're just hitting above and beyond the mark. The first film pushed the boundaries of animation at the time.
Mhm.
And we talked about that on the podcast episode reviewing that film. And when you do that with your first film and you're making a sequel, you have some expectations walking in the door to at least be on the same level. And they
Yeah.
blew past it.
100%. And initially, you're like, okay, this is about on par. But as we go further along and they start doing more with the story, which we're not going to spoil yet, they definitely supersede any and all expectations.
Most definitely. That was one of the things that I love too. Like with it unexpectedly opening with Gwen. I'm talking about her different art style and stuff like that. It's just immediately being introduced to this watercolor style,
Yes.
art style, when I was just automatically brain going in was time for comic book art. And then it's, oh no, this is watercolor. You mentioned it was blurry. Everything's melding together. Just so perfectly done. Again, of course.
Yes. Also, back to what you were saying, Chris, let's circle back to the hug moment. We go from the hug to her and her father going from the most wholesome moment in the entire movie to the moment where their relationship is strained more than it's ever been in their entire life in a matter of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is literally 10 minutes.
Maybe not in movie time, but in screen time, you go from the most wholesome moment to within 10 minutes. It's a roller coaster of emotions.
And it hooks you in as an audience member
Yes, you're
instantly.
like, that just happened. And then they don't
Oh,
even get a
yeah.
chance to resolve it because she walks into the fucking portals.
No resolution there for us at all.
Yeah.
So like we've been fully invested in what is already a completely told story, and then out of nowhere, she's walking away. What?
Also, Jessica Drew, the Spider-Woman on the motorcycle.
Sounds
She's
correct.
such a badass.
Oh, yes.
Like,
oh, yeah.
Rolling in, pregnant. all
Full belly. Full belly.
Oh, yeah, like
Yeah,
8 months
yeah.
pregnant. How?
kicking butt.
Yes. And in addition to that, early on, since we get introduced to, I'm having a huge blank on the character name, but Oscar Isaacs was perfect voice casting.
Miguel.
Miguel, yes, thank you, Miguel. His voice, the tone just fits perfectly for Miguel's character.
Oh, yeah. I thought Oscar Isaac killed it.
It's Oscar Isaac, so we expect him to kill it because he's Oscar Isaacs. When does he not kill it? But this role in particular, this might be my favorite role. We don't even get to see him act.
No, it's true. I didn't realize it was him until I looked it up when I got home. But I was like, dang, whoever's doing this voice is really doing a nice job.
Oh, yeah.
But
sure.
this is also the first time in the film that we get introduced to the Spider Society as well, which we don't actually get to
Yeah.
see for quite a while in the film as well. But I do like that they sprinkle that in and we're curious about what that actually is, because it is a very new concept for us as audience members.
Oh, yeah. The portal devices also grabbed my attention immediately because my favorite genre is sci-fi. So anything cool technology-wise, I'm just like, oh, that's cool. Instantly. Like, I own 10 seasons of Star Trek and I own 5 seasons of Stargate. I own Battlestar Galactica. Anything with technology, I just turn into a 5-year-old. My attention is there. So I was very excited to see where the portal watches were going to be taking us, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah.
Back in Brooklyn on Earth 1610, Miles Morales is adapting to being Spider-Man while internally handling his feelings for Gwen and struggling to live up to his parents' expectations. While heading to a parent-teacher evaluation, he encounters the Spot, a scientist infused with portals after the Alchemix Collider explosion. Blaming Miles for his dilemma, the Spot brings Miles to Alchemix after a series of skirmishes. He then accidentally transports himself into a void, where he learns to travel to other universes that contain the Alchemix Collider so he can use them to empower himself. It's been about a year, Miles Morales being Spider-Man, and he's definitely grown up, as teenagers do. So it's really cool. I feel that some time has passed since we've seen the first film, and now we're getting to see a little bit of an older, confident Miles in his abilities. He's been Spider-Man for a full year, so he's, oh yeah, cool. Spot, villain of the week at best.
Let's start off with the Spot, because conceptually, this is one of the best villains, at least on a conceptual level. I really like him a lot. The concept of it is really fucking cool. And again, me being the huge sci-fi nerd, I turn into a kid in a candy store. But there is a lot they can do with this idea. And when I saw this, I'm like, oh, we're in for a wild ride, because they can do so much with this, considering how smart the first one is and how smart this one started off already. In the theater, I was just sitting there thinking, oh man, this is going to be one of the wildest rides we've ever been on.
We got introduced to him. He's talking and he's like, how do you not remember me? Blah, blah, blah. And you're like, he's telling the whole story and everything. And then he's, you hit me with a bagel. I lost it. I was laughing so hard. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the bagel guy. Because that felt like such a distinct humor moment in the first one, is when the bagel goes flying, it hits the guy, and the whole screen just has the word bagel across it. It stood out in our minds because of the humor, and now it's coming back because now this whole backstory is turned into this whole villain, and such a cool concept for a villain. Definitely something that at least I have never seen before in my realm of nerddom. And watching it too, something me and my fiance noticed is with his art as well, because of course we're going to talk about the art 58 million times, is that if you look closely at him, like you can see when you're sketching the outline of a body, just using the shapes like circles and ovals and whatever, you can see those on his body ever so slightly as he's moving. And that was just so super cool. Absolutely loved it.
Yes, and when he creates another portal, it gets removed from his body. It's so much fun to watch, just him moving everywhere. It's great. I love it. He was not officially in the official comic books, as far as I can tell, but he did appear in the 1994 series.
That's cool. I also wanted to mention that I really love how they implement humor in this film, because it's not over the top. It's not stupid, silly humor. Like,
it was well placed.
Yes, it's not like some of the other superhero movies that have been coming out lately, where it's okay. Yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything. No, like the line that's like, why do people say ATM machine? The M stands for machine. These little quips that are just thrown out there, they're like, are you like, oh wait, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I like that. Yeah, so the blending of humor, but then also heart is incredible, honestly. And I think that's why it really just hits home for me every time I watch it. But also the conversation with the college planner and his parents, I thought that was awesome. That's one of my favorite scenes actually in the movie.
Yeah.
The reason why it works is because it shows the family dynamic so specifically well. You have no questions after that. You're like, okay, you understand this family perfectly from that one scene.
Yes.
You can tell Miles is trying to satisfy his parents, but also still be Spider-Man. You can tell that his parents are trying to do what's best for him, but they're still reluctant to let him spread his wings a little. The entire family dynamic is set up perfectly.
Yeah, and the details are great too. Like when Rio snaps her fingers at Miles in the office during that college planning appointment, a little Puerto Rican flag pops up.
Yeah.
There's cool stuff like that all the time. I love the quote when Miles leaves and then his dad's leaving, and he says, "We'll get through this together," and then leaves.
Together. Boom.
You just see that whole relationship of that family unit so clearly. I love it.
A little amendment. He did appear in the comics in 1984. I was incorrect. I scrolled too far down on Wikipedia. And then again in 1985. He was in the comics. I was incorrect.
That's cool. So it is a storied character that we've seen in a few different formats in the Spider-Verse. That's cool.
Yes, indeed. Also, I can't be the only one. When we first get introduced to Miles on screen, when the Spot is stealing money from the ATM, Miles is heating up that burrito. I can't be the only one who got Deadpool chimichanga vibes. I cannot be the only one.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Very much.
I was rewatching the movie earlier today, and I'm like, wait, I forget, does Deadpool make an appearance here? That's like chimichanga.
Yeah, there's so many little scenes in here that I just love. In this little 10-minute recap, right? I love the little Easter egg of Miles' roommate playing the PS5 Spider-Man game in their shared
Yes.
dorm room. I'm like, oh, I
Yes.
play that game. Which, speaking
Yes.
of, super excited for that new one coming out in October. That looks amazing. But yeah, that little stuff, the humor again, like Miles' dad psyching himself up to jump into the black hole, and then it cuts to
Running on
him
the
running down the stairs.
Yes. Yes, I love that part.
It was amazing.
There just is so much fun stuff happening, but then also little cameos, like the Spot running into Venom's super side character and having that gum.
Yes. Yes. My favorite was the Lego universe.
That
was
amazing.
cool.
The Lego universe, because I really enjoyed playing with Legos when I was a kid. So I'm sure many of us did. But that one, and I also really liked the Lego movie when it came out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Actually, the guys who created the Lego movie are also the masterminds behind these movies as well. So that's a
Oh.
correlation because Christopher Lord and Phil Miller were involved in both projects. So another little Easter egg, like you were talking about, Chris, including the Lego Spider-Man, chef's kiss. But
Oh, wait.
also including J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson
Yes.
as the voice. Like, there is no other J. Jonah Jameson. It's J.K. Simmons. He has authentified himself as the definitive J. Jonah Jameson. Bringing him back, pure gold. I loved it. I'm here for it. And again, seeing Spot's animation style pop in with the different universes, like the 1970s comic with the Spot appearing, I loved it. Seeing the combination of one art style with the Spot transplanted in, it can't get better than that. It doesn't get better than that. It does, but it doesn't. You get what I'm saying?
Switching lanes a little bit, something else I really wanted to talk about for a moment was I really enjoyed seeing this film dive into more of the family aspect of Miles's
Yeah.
character. And we got some of that groundwork in the first movie, but I really loved just seeing more of that Puerto Rican representation here because
Yeah.
I feel like we
Yes.
don't see that much on the big screen.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's all blended with awesome things happening, like Miles messing up the cake or the DJ turning up the music and then turning it off during the argument with his parents. It's all blended with other things happening. But I thought that was just super cool because I just wanted to mention and throw that out there because I feel like I don't see that very often, especially in superhero.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
Superhero genre is definitely white dominated.
Yeah, we did have Blue Beetle come out recently. I'll be honest, I haven't seen that yet. But yeah, historically, we're looking at very white cast members.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yep. Indeed. Let's also make sure to mention that Miles is multiracial because his father's black and
Yeah.
his mom is Hispanic. There's very little multiracial, in addition to just having a person of color being represented, having multiracial representation is equally as important because he's both black and Hispanic, which is not a common combination. At least
with
represent
Marvel
for
and
representation
DC.
in film. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we need to make sure we mention that. And that's more props to that movie for making sure that we get that representation in there.
Yeah.
That was a great point, Tim. Having a multiracial superhero.
Yeah, because in the first movie, his mom being Hispanic isn't as predominant. It's a lot more subtle. You think of him as a black person first more than you think of him as partially Hispanic in the first movie. At least I did. Now, if that's me being a little bit racist, I'm sorry. That was not my intention. But at least that's how it came across for me because I did not think of him as having a ton of Hispanic heritage. Whereas this movie, you get more of the Hispanic representation.
I hear what you're saying, Tim. It seemed like in the first film he was embracing maybe heritage from his father more so than his mother. And this one, we're seeing that side of him as well.
In the
Great.
first movie, he's really close with Uncle Aaron, and Uncle Aaron is black. And I think that might be partially why.
Yeah.
Before I jump into Gwen arriving, do you guys have any other thoughts?
Yes, because the scene ends with Gwen. That section ends with Gwen reappearing. I really liked the time displacement because at the end of the first movie, you don't think it's been a year. You think it's been 3 days.
Oh,
Like,
sure. Yeah.
when Gwen reappears at the last second and then the credits roll, you don't realize that it's been a year, but a year. I love how they did that.
Yeah, because in the first film, they are still young looking. They did have to change that in the second film, age them up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was great that they picked up that little post-credit scene, I think it was, or maybe it was just the end scene in the first film, and they plugged it right into this one so smoothly.
Yeah, 40 minutes into the movie. I checked that timestamp
yeah.
specifically so I could make that point during the podcast.
Yeah, we're a third of the way through the film, and then we pick up where the second film left off, basically.
Yeah.
Gwen travels to Earth 1610, and she and Miles reconnect, though she is secretly tracking the spot across dimensions. Miles invisibly watches Gwen trace him, after which Drew contacts Gwen and instructs her to leave Miles behind. Gwen opens a portal, which Miles falls through to Mumbattan on Earth 501. They encounter Spider-Man Pevetier and Hobby Brown before confronting the Spot, who successfully absorbs the power of the World Collider. Miles is struck with the vision of his father dying at the hands of the Spot before Spot escapes. In the ensuing destruction of the Collider, Miles saves a police captain, the father of Prabhakar's girlfriend. However, Mumbattan then begins falling apart from the disruption of a canon event. Members of the Spider Society arrive to assess the damage of the dimensional anomaly, while Miles, Gwen, and Prabhakar and Brown are sent to their headquarters on Earth 928, where hundreds of Spider-Man variants reside. They meet up with O'Hara and are joined by Peter B. Parker and his daughter, Mayday. O'Hara explains how each Spider-Man story contains canon events, such as the death of a police captain, and that straying from those events threatens the fabric of the multiverse.
Oh, okay. That's a lot to unpack. Good God. I was not ready for to keep going. I was about to jump in, and then you kept going. Okay, the point I was going to make earlier with the audio. When I was in the theater watching the movie, Hobie, the punk rocker from England, the entire time, I had no idea what the hell he was saying. I'm like, he's got a guitar, and he's got the piercing, so he's a punk rocker. I think he's British, but what the hell is he saying? The sound mix for the entire movie disappointed big time for that in the theater. I'm just sitting there watching the movie and like, I'm just going to roll with this because I have no idea what he's saying. Thankfully, he wasn't the main character. And then at work 3 days later, one of my coworkers like, so Tim, you saw the Spider-Man movie, right? I'm like, yes. He goes, could you understand what the British punk rocker was saying? I'm like, no, I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Throw subtitles on when I hit home.
I did throw subtitles on. I'm like, that's what he was saying. This is even better. Oh, like
it is a thicker accent for sure. I didn't realize I'm blanking the actor's name.
Daniel Kaluuya.
Yes, yeah.
The guy from Get Out and Nope.
Yes, and I've seen him in a lot of things, but I haven't heard him with that specific accent before.
Yeah, because he's naturally British.
Hey,
most people don't realize that. They see Get Out and Nope. I thought he was American. Then I watched the Johnny English movie where he appeared. I'm like, he's British? What is this madness?
I had the same experience where I was like, double take him. Oh, wait, that's who played him? Okay.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that it was him until today because that didn't occur to me. So yeah. But now that I've gotten the little humorous bit with the not understanding what the hell he's saying, I really like where Miles and Gwen's friendship has evolved to up to this point in the movie, because seeing them reunited, it was so good to see each other and see them swing around comparabilities, just see what the other can do, how the other has evolved. It's what friends naturally do when you're their age, 16, 17 years old. It was so wholesome and I was there for it. I just had that heartwarming, aw moment the entire time where they're swinging and just chatting away like old friends.
Yeah, because they are best friends and they haven't seen each other for a whole year.
Partially because he's her only friend at that point.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Again, going back to Gwen's character development, you see her from not having any friends. Oh, wait, I actually do have one friend. And then when that friend comes in, it's a night and day difference. And you can see she's mentally in a better place when she's around Miles compared to everywhere else we've seen her. Even in the first movie, whenever she's around Miles, she's in a better place mentally.
And going back to Gwen and Miles hanging out a little bit, I absolutely love that whole upside down scene with Gwen and Miles viewing the city. The city itself is incredibly beautiful, but then you have them transposed upside down in that.
Yeah.
It's a poster right there.
Oh, 100%. And, you know, they're hanging upside down because you see Gwen's hair hanging down. Otherwise, it's shot right side up, but they're still upside down. They definitely stole that scene from The Dark Knight. But no, I agree. That was one of the best looking shots of the movie. And from a conceptual point, I like that as well. They can do it, so why not do it?
Yeah, I think we mentioned probably last time and probably this time, I think too, Chris, you said something about it. But the ability that they have with it being an animated movie versus live action, because even if you were to do something like that with CGI, it's not going to be the same. The power that they have with it being an animated movie, being able to do these scenes the way that no other media at this point in time can, is just so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, and we definitely talked about it in a review of the first film, but definitely is like you're saying, Tasha. Oh, we don't have to do a Pixar movie. We can go crazy. It's animation. We can literally do anything now. It's 2023. Yeah, they did. They definitely turned it up.
Absolutely.
Cranked it. Going back to the conversation and the relationship aspect, though, of Miles and Gwen, I really love the dialogue that is exchanged. And at least for me personally, as a viewer, I was totally glued in. They're saying stuff like, we're the same in the important ways. Those really heartfelt moments that you say with people that you care about. And in between all the crazy shit going down in the film, we have this moment of more of a reflection between these two characters. I really appreciate it because I feel we do get those a lot in films, but they're not always delivered to this level.
Yeah. Something else in regards to their relationship. The scene where they're hanging on the roof, it's too much of a stereotype for them to become a dating couple. Like, it happens in every movie. Too many times, the two main couples end up dating or together and not as just friends. And I feel like that is underrated in this movie. And there's a scene where Miles is like, should I make a move in to try and woo her as like girlfriend? And then she says, but all of them have failed. And then he takes his hand back and they stay as just friends. And there needs to be more representation in cinema of people who are compatible as a dating couple, but still remain just friends. Because that isn't everybody's path. And while that's the stereotype in the movie, it needs to be more well represented.
No, I agree. It's definitely not following the typical track, I guess I would say, when it comes to heterosexual friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's blatantly obvious. They could very well end up being a couple and a good couple for each other at that, but they're just friends. And I appreciate the hell out of that.
And we're getting to benefit from that as audience members, getting to see them both grow individually.
Yeah.
And then potentially maybe in the next film together.
Man, for sure. I also really enjoyed the scene where Gwen interacts with Miles's parents. I thought that was funny because his parents were like, who the hell is this? Oh, she's calling us by our first names.
Miles' mom is, I bet she doesn't even speak Spanish.
Yes.
I freaking love Miles' parents, but especially his mom. I definitely enjoyed that whole dynamic playing out between the parents, Miles and Gwen. Miles' mom is saying stuff like, don't take him from me. Don't break his heart. Just embarrassing the hell out of Miles.
Yeah.
But also, I think it is one of my top 3, I keep saying, favorite scenes. I think it's one of the most powerful scenes in the movie when Miles almost tells his mom that he's Spider-Man. He almost does it. He comes so close.
Yeah.
And then she tells him to go after Gwen. She says she's been taking care of him for all these years, that she's worried about the world not looking out for him like she does for Miles and Miles' dad does for Miles. And she tells him to never doubt that he's loved. Good stuff. I was getting emotional watching it at home this week. I was like, I just feel that love is very felt and presented at a very high level in this film.
Indeed. In addition to that, I also really appreciate the fact that his mom is coming more in the forefront for this movie. Because in the first movie, she took a back seat. Understandable. When you make a movie, you're making artistic choices to focus on what you need to focus on. But when you focus on something, you are, finger quotes, paying the price on another aspect of the movie. If you introduce 5 characters and have them all really well developed, you're making a 2.5 to 3 hour movie. You're not having a 2-hour runtime. If you have a 2-hour runtime but have that many characters, they're not going to be as developed. So the first movie rightfully chose to focus on other characters, and his mom took a side seat. Whereas since this movie, the groundwork for everything has already been laid with the first movie, and allows this movie to expand on other areas that it couldn't with the first movie, and his mom being one of the primary examples of that. And I really appreciate that because his mom is one of the best characters in the movie by far. And the scene where she ungrounds him, as you were saying, Chris, is heartfelt. And again, Tasha and I at the same time just put our hand over our hearts. Oh, I love that moment. Really
Yes.
hits you right in the feels.
Yeah, it really does. And as we've already mentioned, the first movie did seemingly more focus on him and his dad's relationship, and this one a lot more of his mom and his mom's side of heritage and all those sort of things, which, like you mentioned, Chris, showing so much more of the family dynamic. It almost feels like it was a way of completing that because we've got one side, we've got another side, and now it all comes together, which is just so beautiful to witness. And also super nice to watch or consume media where, yes, obviously there are conflicts within the parent child relationship, but it is still focused around the fact that there is so much love for each other there and that they want to make things right. Because it's just not always the popular thing in media. It's a lot more of the angsty teen. There's just always really big animosities, and it doesn't all come back to the basis of loving each other and wanting things to still remain a family unit. And that is so much of what this movie contains, which I just absolutely love on so many levels. And they just do such a beautiful job of it. Such a beautiful job.
Indeed. Also, I think part of the reason why his mom ungrounds him is because during the huge argument, they went over and Miles listed all of his friends, and he doesn't have any friends really. He does, but they're not actual friends. But his mom recognizes that Gwen is an actual friend, and she's like, oh, we can't have Miles losing his only friend at this point. As far as I know, if I do that, he'll never forgive me. He can be grounded later, but he needs to be there for his friend. Again, going to how much she loved her son.
Yeah. And even such a beautiful example of good parenting, which has been a discussion I've been having with a friend a lot lately, but learning those instances of when you need to keep your foot firm and when you need to give your kid grace or let them have a little extra leeway, whatever, and how that can be such a hard line to walk. And that was just such a beautiful moment of knowing when that was the right time to be like, okay, we're letting what would normally be a boundary, we're letting it go farther.
Very well said, Tasha. And then,
Yeah.
of course, the parents walk into his bedroom when he's not there.
Yeah.
Yes, typical teenager. His mom knew he wouldn't be there, but
Maybe.
yeah. Can we talk about the battle with Spot?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, we saw Spot square off against Miles, but now we've seen the Spot square off against 4 spider people because we have Miles, we have Gwen, we have Kavatir, and we have Hobie. 4 spider people just come to show you how much the Spot has grown in his power from when we saw him in the battle with Miles. Seeing his power grow in addition to that just really adds to the, oh shit, this is really happening. They are building up to something huge. And I really appreciate the buildup they've got going on so far. In addition to that, the fight sequences were insanely well choreographed in addition to that, because the whole thing with superhero movies is you got to have fun fight sequences because you got to show off their abilities somehow. And as an action movie junkie, I appreciate a good action sequence. I understand they bore some people, but that is my niche. So if a superhero movie doesn't have a good action sequence, I'm probably going to dock it from a higher score than I would have for not having good action sequences. But that sequence, I was on the edge of my seat. I was glued to the screen like, what is about to happen next?
Yeah.
Especially with the bridge scene. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that's pretty high stress, anxiety level, high tension action
Yes.
going on there.
Yes, 100%. Also, can we talk about how fucking beautiful the India Spider-Man universe was? Again, it's more hand-drawn than computer-generated, but it's absolutely gorgeous. I want to live in every single one of these universes. I want to spend time and vacation in every one of these locations with this specific art style so I can just witness the sheer beauty of it all.
Yay.
That's a great point, Tim, because even before Miles jumps into the portal, we get to see NYC at night and how that brings a whole
Yes.
new light to the city that we haven't seen
Badam tis.
prior. Yes, that we haven't seen Miles in up to this point in the film. And then, yeah, when we visit that whole new world, the colors are all different. The animation styles different as well, which I really appreciated that they decided to really embrace.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, I think we would be remiss. I don't know if that's the right word, but I think it would be a mistake to not go over how important this part of the movie is for Gwen's character development as much as Miles, because Gwen fucks up big time. This is the fuck up of fuck ups for her. Absolutely nothing went right for her during this entire thing, with the exception of Miles still being her friend. That's the only thing that went right for her this entire time. And seeing her trying to cover up her mistake, I think this is the one scene where we see Gwen maybe having a bit of a pride issue, because she should have seen immediately, oh, I'm no match for the spot. I need to get Miguel and Jess over here now because shit is going down. But she says, it's fine. It's fine. And if Miles had known about the spider people, I feel like he would have gotten them over there sooner to help deal with the spot, because he realized what was going on to a certain extent, but he didn't know about all the spider people organization and the universe. So I feel like if Miles had known, he would have absolutely called for help. But Gwen, with her pride issue, doesn't want to be seen as a screw up and cover up and solve things for herself. And we don't get to see that with Gwen in the previous movie. Pride isn't really the issue. It's more so just testing the grounds. Let's see her relationship with Miles and see what kind of friendship develops. In this case, she becomes a fully fleshed out character, both good qualities and bad qualities.
That calls into going back into her family life and her relationship with her dad, and how she has all this need to prove herself to be this person, because she knows that deep down, at this point, at least, her father thinks she's a murderer, and imagining all the inner turmoil that brings, and feeling probably also guilt, probably also struggling within herself, whether or not she considers herself to be that. So that probably adds so much pressure to her to go above and beyond normal performance levels.
In addition to that, because she doesn't have any friends, she's learned I have to do things on my own. She doesn't ask for help ever because she doesn't have any friends. She can't go to her parents about her issues because her problems spawn from being Spider-Woman or Spider-Gwen or whichever it is. She can't go to her parents for help. She can't go to any of her friends for help because she doesn't have friends. So she has to do things on her own. So that just reinforces it with her psychological profile, I think is the right phrase. Yeah. I think that it really fleshes out her character a lot. And in many ways, the character development of this movie is more of a plot than the actual plot. And I think that this whole sequence really adds to that.
That's a great point, because at the very beginning of the film, she quits the band because she doesn't like to be a part of a team.
Oh, shit. You're right. Thank you. I did not. I realized that, but I didn't realize it.
I didn't realize that until you guys were talking. So I was like, oh, wait.
All of the dots connect.
This is why we have 3 people on a podcast.
Yes. I was going to mention, too, the music and the score is such a huge part of this film. There's Afrobeat, there is Latin crossover, and just a little bit of everything going on here. It's a very global feeling film, and that's largely because of the soundtrack.
Yeah, it does add so much to all of it, the atmosphere. And
yes, and as you can imagine, I was the biggest fan of the British anti-establishment punk rock. I say as I'm wearing my Judas Priest shirt. But yes, I agree completely. Hearing all the traditional music from everybody's portion of the world and what represents their culture, so to speak, I agree, added to the whole global feeling of the movie. And even when it wasn't an actual song from an actual artist with lyrics and stuff, like the score of the movie, in addition to all of that, pure chef's kiss. Again, I think that's a contender for best movie score in the Oscars this year. I think it's worthy of a nomination.
Yeah, while we're talking about it, I guess the song Am I Dreaming by Metro Boomin that plays as a credits roll at the end of the film, that's been my most played song on my Spotify account since June 1st. I went and saw this film. I absolutely love that song. And yeah, it's just a culmination of all different kinds of music. Just super interesting how they really had a collective hive mind working to make this all come together.
You can tell. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Random. But again, with the ATM joke, I love that the chai means tea, bro.
Yes.
Quip.
I cackled both in the theater and on my couch this afternoon.
Chai means tea, bro.
If you want to say chai tea, it's just chai.
Tea.
Yes, indeed. And again, back what you're saying about the humor being well placed, but not overly dominant.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one other point I wanted to make. We didn't emphasize the point that Miles is the one who saved the police officer.
Yes.
As opposed to somebody else, because again, he doesn't understand the whole Spider Society. He doesn't understand what a canon event is. We don't either. So we're cheering him on, wanting him to save the police officer because he's Spider-Man. It's what he does. It's what he has to do because he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And also, Miles being the one to save Javidier's father is going to have other implications that we're going to discuss later on in the movie. I'll make sure to bring it up when we come around full circle near the end of the movie, but that needs to be emphasized. Also, you mentioned that they meet up with Peter B. Parker. That is incredibly important because we get to continue the teacher and student relationship that made the first movie so awesome.
Yeah. No, we do. And I'm really glad he is in this one again.
It was super great. No, favorite. Absolutely adorable.
Yeah, and with her little Spider-Man hat.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the cutest
Her
little thing.
mascot.
Yeah, for sure.
I did want to take a moment here and just pause for one moment to share that the Cinema Club podcast is 100% supported by you, our listeners. So if you are enjoying the show, and if you are wanting to support the show and continue to help it grow, please consider clicking the support button on our website. You can check that out at podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/cinema club. Thank you so much. And now let's return to the episode. Miles realizes that his father's death is a canon event. He argues with O'Hara, who imprisons him. However, Hobie, an anarchist, helps Miles break loose, then uses a portal to ditch the society. O'Hara orders all the spider people to apprehend Miles, resulting in a long chase through the complex. O'Hara eventually pins Miles down and tells him that he was never supposed to become Spider-Man, as the spider that bit him came from another universe, and leaving the world with no Spider-Man. Miles flees, and with the help of Spider-Bite, Margot Kess returns to his home dimension. Seeing Gwen as a liability, O'Hara kicks her out of the Spider Society and sends her back to her universe. Gwen reconciles with her father, who has decided to resign as police captain. Realizing that his resignation is evidence that canon can be safely violated, Gwen decides to aid Miles, leaving Earth 65 with a bootleg portal watch Brown left with her father for her.
So we already pseudo discussed the reunion between Miles and Peter with the mentor-student relationship, so we can move on from that. I thought that the whole canon event was a fun concept. I'm not sure if that's been used in other stories, but personally, through all the media I have consumed, this is my first interaction with such an idea, and I really enjoyed it. And it really allows you to play with the morals of every character in the movie. And it really allows every character to be a character. Since everyone has a different perspective on life, there are going to be some people who disagree, some people who agree, some people who agree, but to a point. It really allows every character to be their own person while still being unique because of how they react to each canon event.
Yeah, it's definitely a theme that I have seen in other media before. In Doctor Who, there are these big main events that you can't go back and change type of thing. I know there's other things other stories that I've seen that into. It's one of those things that I'm like, I hate it personally because I'm like, no, there's always got to be a way to make everything be right. That's like the optimist part of me or whatever. But story-wise, I'm like, this makes so much sense. And I love that it plays into destiny and things like that because I also love those kinds of themes. But yeah, and it does play so much into who they become and butterfly effect. One little change can change so much. It just encapsulates so much in such a small idea. But yeah.
When you said Doctor Who, it wasn't clicking for me. I was like, Dr. Seuss, what's she talking about? Where's this going? I'm so lost.
My God.
So I apologize. I was like totally out of it for like half of that conversation. That's my bad. Sorry.
No worries. Get nerdier, Chris.
I know. I admit it. I'm sorry. I used to watch Doctor Who.
I got through the Eccleston season, but beyond that, I never got into Doctor Who because the Eccleston season didn't do it for me.
I got through Matt Smith. I watched everything through that. Anyway, great example, Tasha. If anybody can track what you're saying, unlike me, sorry about that.
Back to what Tasha was saying about her being the optimist, there's a way for everything to be perfect. I think this is part of the reason why she resonates with this movie, because she resonates with Miles so well, because Miles shares that same opinion, because there has to be a way to fix everything. Everything can be perfect. Yeah. I can write my own story. I can make things perfect my way. Why she likes the movie is clicking even harder now.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, because you watched this for the first time yesterday, but you liked it, right, Tosh?
Oh, God, yes.
Okay, just double check.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, I was like, all the feelings that I had watching the first one for the first time, just oh my gosh, how does this even exist? This is one of the best movies I've ever seen. Felt all that over again. It was fantastic. Great.
Also,
Very fun. Very fun.
Absolutely. And also, while we're talking about it, we don't know how much time necessarily has passed between Peter B. Parker's universe and his world, but he now has
Yeah.
a kid that's 2 or 3 years old now. So obviously, time in his universe has passed at a different rate than time in Miles' universe.
ooh,
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought
So
about that.
I just now thought about it too. Holy shit, his kid's 3 or 4 years old now at this point, because Peter B. Parker's obviously back together with his wife, and they had enough time to have a kid, and then had that kid mature to develop to the point where he can take her on missions now.
You know, it's
So,
not
like-
technically supposed to.
Yeah,
He can.
exactly, exactly.
Is he supposed to? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting to see the whole time dynamic in this movie work as well. And it shows you partially how Peter's life has gotten better, so to speak, because in the first movie, he was in the lowest of lows. He was at rock bottom in the first movie. And seeing him come from that is just a nice little heartwarming thing. And then how Miles helped him, again, seeing Peter's character development in this movie from where he was in the previous movie, it's just fascinating. I love it.
Yeah. And even playing to the idea of time running differently in different places. The fact that this entire Spider-Man organization exists, this entire building dedicated to all of this equipment, all of these machines. They've discovered all this technology to be able to run through the different dimensions whenever they want to. All of that takes time. And I'm betting it took longer than just a single year. And now I'm forgetting his name, the one that Oscar Isaac plays.
Miguel.
Miguel, thank you. But he had to go through his own event, his own canon of losing his world, basically, and then finding this other world where he had a family and, just all these things. All of this took so much time. And so that obviously all plays into the different wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff. Sorry, gotta make another Doctor Who reference.
No, we're always down for a good Doctor Who reference.
Yeah, it definitely took a lot of time. And even when Miles arrives, he's like, "Wow, this place is amazing." And Gwen's like, "Yo, this is the lobby." And then we
Yeah,
get to walk
yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Again, that was another moment of subtle humor. All right. Would this be an appropriate time to cut to the whole chase sequence?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. The chase sequence is bar none my favorite part of the movie. Absolutely, unequivocally, hands down. The first movie, we thought, wow, a Spider-Man is a pig. That's a creative concept. Oh, we have no idea what they were capable of. Spider
yeah.
T-Rex will forever be my favorite.
The cat.
I know the
Oh,
Spider
yeah.
Cat. Oh my God, I
yeah.
loved it.
The car, so many things.
I think I read online that there's over 705 unique Spider-Mans during that chase.
Yeah.
That makes sense because I did see that about 800 people made up the visual effects team. So they each got one.
Yes, give or take, yeah.
There's so many little Easter eggs in this movie, but especially in that whole chase sequence.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was a shit ton of work, too. I was watching some of the interviews with the making of the film, and it took about 2 years to fully get that sequence together.
Oh,
I believe that.
it.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. And I'm sure it's maybe partially because they are continuously changing things. I don't know if you guys looked into this at all, but they even changed a lot of things from the theatrical to the wide release of the film.
Oh.
Well, a lot of it's little visual things, but some of it's dialogue or even how dialogue is delivered differently. Definitely check out a YouTube video on it. It's super interesting. But yeah, I'm sure that may have had some thing to do with it.
Yeah.
But because they're so detail oriented, we got this fabulous chase sequence.
Yeah, and in addition to that, before the chase sequence really starts, everybody, we need you to stop Spider-Man. And everybody recreates the meme of 3 Spider-Men staring at each other.
Yes.
Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? It's not me.
Me?
It's not me. But seeing 800 Spider-Men do that, the funniest fucking thing of all
Lord.
time. I was cackling.
That was such a beautiful moment. Because in the first one, we had the post-credit scene where they had him all doing that. But then having literally hundreds.
Yes.
So beautiful. So beautiful. And again, such a cracker execution of humor. It was chef's kiss.
Yes, I agree. And in addition to that, just seeing the whole universe where the Spider-Man headquarters is, again, holy shit, that artwork, that
Oh,
entire
yes.
building I'm not like super experienced with anime, but it reminded me of almost anime concepts, but with not anime animation style, if that makes sense. It was
Yeah,
very
yeah.
anime inspired. And we hadn't quite gotten that yet in the Spider-Man universe. So to seeing them go after that art style a little bit, but modernize it, so to speak. I don't know if that modernize is the right word, but put their own twist on it. I really appreciated it.
There's so many things that are original ideas, like in the Pythagorean dimension, the little words in that dimension are in Indian dialects. So
Yeah.
things like crash, bang, boom,
Yeah.
those are all in Indian dialects. It's more immersive as an audience member when you're watching it.
That is a cool little note there for sure.
Just from the get-go, the whole chase sequence is awesome. I love how Miles uses his palms to break out. He
Yes.
finally
Yeah.
gets to fully channel and utilize that power, which I was super excited about because he has that in the video game. So I was like, all right, are they going to do that in this movie?
Nice. Yeah.
And then, as you were mentioning, they have crazy shit going on. But in this whole chase sequence, they have a lot of other fun or silly or serious stuff happening as well. Like, my favorite is when we just cut to the counseling session in Spider-Man's. And then I looked at my uncle and the therapist says, let me guess, he died. And then all the Spider-Man crashed through the entire wall.
Oh, yeah. That was
Yes.
so great. That was so
Like,
great.
Again, a good way to tastefully insert some humor without over dominating or and it's welcome.
Absolutely. I feel like they balanced that so well.
I also really appreciated the choreography of that scene because scoring off 700 Spider-Man against Miles is a really wild concept, and to execute it so flawlessly,
Yeah.
major props. I'm not going to say that's the action sequence of the year because John McFor exists, but
Fair.
for animated movies, that is how you make an action sequence. Also, the thing I really appreciated about this sequence is it really added to Miles' character because the entire time, up until this point, Miles has just been, all right, let's wing it and get it done. He is a very spur of the moment person, but in this case,
Yeah.
he actively thought out his plan and executed it flawlessly. He had an actual
Yeah.
plan, and that benefited him. So I feel like we're going to see him develop as we move on with the story in terms of his ability to plan stuff out as opposed to just wing it, let my emotions do everything, and just, I
Yeah.
feel like it really adds to his character development.
It definitely does. Absolutely.
The emotion behind the action happening is what makes it so powerful as well. I feel this film, along with the first one, does that to a really high level.
For sure. I also really like what they did with Miguel's character because after this chase sequence, you're like, holy shit, Miguel's just another villain. Okay, maybe not a villain, but he's definitely an antagonist as opposed to a protagonist.
Oh, definitely.
He's in it for himself. He's not in it for help Miles. Like, he's in it for himself.
And speaking of the villains, it is interesting that we get these two very different villains in this film. We get the Spot, and he sees the world as pretty black and white, not to make that joke.
I see what you did there.
I didn't try, Tim. I didn't try. But then with Miguel's character, he has a very nuanced view on things. And we get to see why. But I just really appreciated that we got two different villain characters that see the world, see the Spider-Verse, whatever you want to call it, completely different, but they're still presented as villains in the film.
Yeah, and we've had Spider-Man movies with multiple villains before, but it was more so just different motivations for their own character. They were in it to help themselves. They didn't necessarily see the world differently. Whereas, as you said, the Spot and Miguel see the world very differently. So you get two very different perspectives and two completely different motivations.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're not going to be seeing the Spot team up with Miguel either. So if they score off, they're going to fight. They're not going to team up and go against Miles. So again, it's like the stereotype of Spider-Man movie where the villain will team up to help defeat Spider-Man because it's in their best interest. But no, because Miguel's also out to stop the Spot. It'll be interesting to see if in the next movie, we're going to see Miguel team up with Miles to help defeat the Spot, and then they work out their petty differences. It'll be interesting to see how that dynamic ends up working out.
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested to see how that works out. 100%. Another one of my favorite scenes, I know I've named like 5 of them at this point in this podcast, but there's so many.
Again, this movie, that just shows you how fucking good this movie is. For all the listeners out there, If Chris is saying there's 6 of his favorite scenes, that means it's a fucking good movie. Anyways, continue, Chris.
Yeah, hopefully they're listening to this point because they enjoyed it as well.
Yes.
But when Peter B and Miles have that emotional connection scene, I think that was really important for the film as a whole, but then also for the chase scene. And there's so many good quotes in this film, but I really liked Peter B saying, bad things are going to happen. It makes us who we are. But good things are going to happen too. Like you happened and she happened. And you are so bad at holding a baby.
Yes.
It's those moments that to me are super genuine, heartfelt, human connection moments that in between all the crazy stuff happening, as you were kind of talking about, Tasha, earlier with the mother-son
Yeah.
relationship, it sheds a light on a relationship between characters in a really compelling, heartfelt manner that just really connects with me. And I think too that spectacle without emotion gets boring. And
Absolutely.
I think this is what this movie and this chase in this movie does really well. We feel the emotional aspect of Miles feeling that he needs to get home to his family. And that's all due to the fact that his family and that emotional connection has been set up prior to this scene happening in the film.
For sure. And also, I think that the emotional connection is important because by the end of the chase sequence, Miles feels like he doesn't really have any allies. Whereas at the end of the chase sequence, when all is said and done, it shows that both Peter and Gwen, they're still his friend and they're still on his side no matter what happens in the chase. If he gets caught, they're still his friend, they're still on his side, even if they don't necessarily agree with what Miles is doing at the moment.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that emotional, heartfelt connection moment that they had before the chase sequence resumed, then I think that when Miles goes back to HQ to ignite the portal, plays off very differently.
Yeah, I agree.
And since you brought that up too, all the things he goes through to get back into the portal to go home. I feel like there are so many little moments where he makes eye contact with these other spider people and where they share this moment of them also realizing that they feel that hope that he feels that he can save everyone. He can make it happen. And that's why the one girl has the one that's android, whatever, hesitates before she doesn't hit the button. And all those little moments, I feel there are just all these little teeny ones that were, oh, there's another one of the shared characteristics of being Spider-Man. As they have played throughout the movies, that he always gets back up. He always gets back up. There is that hopefulness that is such a strong theme with Spider-Man in all of his different dimensions, whatever.
Yeah, that's another good point, Tasha, is the theme of hope. And Miles says, everyone keeps telling me how my story is supposed to go. Nah,
Yeah.
I'm doing my own thing.
I'm going to do my own thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah,
quote of the movie right
chills.
there.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. The scene is equally as important for Gwen because, again, she's the one who fucked up
Yeah.
with the spot. She's the reason why Miles is in this mess. So the scene where she goes, I didn't know how to tell you, also comes to show you that if she'd been more upfront and honest with him from the beginning, this might have played out very differently. But again, she doesn't know how to do that because she doesn't have a ton of friends. Everything is circling back to her being a loner.
Yeah. That's very true. Very true.
And again, because of that's going to play into what we're going to discuss in the next portion of the plot development. So I'm not going to say too much more because we're going to get to that.
Yeah, do you guys have any other thoughts on this section by chance before we move on to that?
Oh, yes. I thought that Donald Glover as the Prowler live action was an excellent touch.
Yes. Yes.
Did not
Like,
see it coming at all.
No. No.
Like, I enjoyed it in the theater, but then I forgot about it. Then I saw it again. I'm like, Glover, what the heck? That's awesome.
There's so many cool little things like that, like the Insomniac Spider-Man from the
Yeah.
PlayStation video game is in
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going all the way back to the very beginning, when Gwen first is appearing to him and all of his things in his room are starting to lift up as she's opening the portal. First edition Spider-Man comic is one of the things that floats up. Another one of the things, a magic card, Magic the Gathering. All these teeny little itty bitty details little callbacks to things, just so much nuance, so much world building without having to focus on world building. Beautiful.
For sure.
Yeah, because somebody has to make that all.
It was done with intention.
Indeed.
Yes. Oh, something I thought was cool I wanted to share was when they were approaching the whole design process of making, I think you said 700 plus Spider people.
Yeah.
Tim. They had one of the Spider-Man comic book artists come in and design so many of the outfits for the Spider people in the show, which I thought was super cool because they would know how those kind of suits would move. So I thought that was a great little fun
That
kid.
is so fun.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right, let's move on to the next section. So as Miles arrives back in his apartment, he reveals to his mother that he is Spider-Man, whom she doesn't recognize. After encountering his deceased uncle, Aaron Davis, glitching, and learning that his father has already died, Miles realizes that he is in Earth 42, the homeworld of the spider that bit him. Aaron interrogates Miles and is soon joined by the Miles of Earth 42, who has become the Prowler. He refuses to send his counterpart to go save his father.
Holy shit. Okay, let's start out with the obvious. Other than Avengers Infinity War, that is about damn near the most barn-burning ending you can possibly come up with. If the first one had not been that successful, there's no way in hell they would have used that for the ending. They would have had to rework the entire movie because the first one was just done like mid-tier and it was an experiment. They would not have known they would have been able to get away with 2 additional movies. But because the first one did so well, then that's how they know, all right, we can do a barn burner ending to get people in for the next movie.
Absolutely.
But for superhero movies, name a more barn-burning ending than outside of Avengers Infinity War. There isn't one.
Right, yeah.
You're just like, what in the ever-loving fuck? And then the movie just ends.
Watching, all of a sudden he sees on his Uncle Aaron and then it's like, whatever. All of a sudden he wakes up and he's kept in the punching bag and he's assuming that this is Uncle Aaron and trying to convince him and then a reveal of who the Prowler actually is. And I did not see it coming. Fiance, John, absolutely. He was like, oh. And I was like, what? And he was like, which he's one of those people. He calls things before they happen. He's one of those people. I'm never that person ever. I
Me
always like
either.
spew ideas. I was like, what's going to happen? Never is what's going to happen.
I was suspicious
Oh.
when he started crawling into his window. I was like, wait, are they going to do this? I was freaking out in the theater and Sarah's like, what's
Yeah.
going on? What's happening?
Yeah, I
I was
got
like,
you.
oh
But yeah,
my God.
I'm with you, Tasha. I didn't see it coming, but I've also been blessed with the ability to just completely shut my brain off during a movie and I can just be engaged in it. So even the most obvious of surprises will surprise me. So I can actually enjoy a
We
movie
love it.
for
We
the
love
movie.
it. Yes.
Yes. So because of that, I've been willing to give more movies a pass when it's questionable to give it a pass because of that.
Same.
Well,
Yeah, absolutely. It's where some of my more questionable favorite movies come from, probably.
when he was creating the portal, did either of you guys see the twist coming of him not going to his original universe and him going to Earth 42? Did either of you see that
No.
coming? Because I didn't realize
Not
it
at all.
until Gwen realized it. When
Yeah.
Gwen realized it and revealed it, and then it showed Miles revealing it, I'm like, oh shit. But all of the clues were right there because
Oh, yeah.
Miles in his universe, his mom's eyes are brown, whereas in the
Yes.
Universe 42, his mom's eyes are green.
I was like, her eyes look different. And I was like, I must be just confusing characters somehow or something. But I was like, actually, her eyes are so much more brilliant staring at you in this scene. And I was like, why is that? But my brain did not put the pieces together until all of a sudden, yeah, Aaron walks in, Gwen realizes, it all happens at once and it's all much.
Yep.
But yeah.
And another clue that if you go back to the first movie, remember when Miles touches the spider after he comes back to it, it glitches because it's not its original universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
If we were to bring the spider back, it wouldn't be glitching. It's just brilliant.
It is.
They set it up
is.
so well, honestly.
No, gloriously.
So good. One detail I really did like, probably wouldn't have caught it in the movie theater unless I was away in the Jordan 1s. But when Miles is tied up in his Air Jordan 1s, they have changed from their original colorway to the multiverse version. Yes, which is
Oh.
cool because Nike did a limited edition
Yeah.
multiverse Jordan 1s that sold when the movie was released. So
Oh,
I
that
wouldn't have
is
caught it
so
unless those shoes were on my radar before I walked in the theater. But I was like, oh, wait, that's cool. Because they're totally different looking Air Jordan
Okay.
1s.
Yeah.
I will have to look into that.
Yeah, they made 2 different Air Jordans, one for the first movie and another for the second movie. So hopefully they'll make a third for the third
Yeah,
movie.
for
But
sure.
just something I really appreciated and loved.
I
Little,
wouldn't have even thought.
definitely. Another little Easter egg. Miles goes into his room and there's some things that are different. There's a design of the Prowler glove next to the drawing board, a book about free climbing on the bookshelf, and there's a speed bag next to the door, and there's a Muay Thai trophy.
Oh, fascinating.
I didn't even catch any of
So
that.
I didn't either. I definitely read all of this online.
Hey, that
Fair,
works.
fair.
But this means we're going to get a Miles versus Miles fight in movie 3.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All of the emotions are going to be happening during that fight.
Oh, yeah.
Because Earth 42 Miles is the freaking Prowler. He knows Muay Thai, so it's going to be a hell of a fight.
Something that I wanted to run by you both that is 100% a theory of mine. But
Lay it on, brother.
I'm wondering if this alternative version of Miles maybe isn't necessarily bad. Maybe he is
Yeah.
a hero
Yeah.
in this other world.
That could be. That could
Among
absolutely.
not having a Spider-Man, the world's gone to shit, but maybe he is some kind of anti-hero. I don't know. Could definitely be way off on that one, but I definitely have
You
thought
never
about
know.
that.
Oh,
Okay,
that would be
I-
such a fascinating way to go as well.
I think it would be interesting, but we still haven't completely confirmed on how Miles' father died. And I think that since he's the Prowler, he might have had to kill his father because in Universe 42, his father's a cop. So I think that Miles might have had to kill his own father.
Oh,
Getting dark.
So, or that Uncle Aaron killed his father, and that's entirely in play as well. And that's what laid the foundation for him to become the Prowler.
Interesting. I guess I had assumed that the loss of his father had potentially spurred him into what he's
yeah.
become, but I hadn't considered that aspect.
That's going to be my theory I'm going to stick with until they confirm otherwise.
Okay. It's a dark one.
I mean, they left us on such a dark note. I have to have a dark theory. You should be going to Tasha for the optimistic theory.
Mine was pretty optimistic.
I
Yeah, I
would
wouldn't
like
say
to.
it's optimistic, but yours is a lot
Mid.
more optimistic than mine is.
In
Full on,
contrast.
I went full on depression mode.
My brain instantly went to Black Panther and Killmonger type thing, where equal amounts of power, passion, backstory, all these things that contribute to who they are, but going down separate paths, even with maybe some similar ideals type of a deal. And fingers crossed, redemption.
Yeah, because they do have a similar suit.
Yeah.
I'm excited. It'll be interesting for sure.
And I'm depressed we're not getting it next year.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I
about
know.
it. Well,
It
we might
makes
get it
sense.
next year. We might not just get it next spring. It's just
Yeah.
delayed indefinitely. So pay your actors. and-
Yes. Pay your people.
Yeah.
Yes, all work is work. We stand with the strikers.
100%. But yeah, just to wrap the synopsis aspect up. So O'Hara, Drew, and Ben Riley travel to Earth 1610 in search of Miles just as the Spot arrives and begins his attack. Ending the movie on a cliffhanger, Gwen begins a new version of the Spider Gang to find and save Miles from Miguel and the Spider Society and help him stop the Spot from destroying everything he holds dear, along with the Spider-Verse itself. Back on Earth 42, Miles prepares to escape his binds.
This is partially why I wanted to point out that Miles is the one who saved Pavatir's father, because Pavatir is part of the Spider Gang. And if Miles just lets his father die, Pavatir probably isn't going to help him.
Oh.
Great point.
Yeah, I know. Noticed that on the rewatch. So Pavatir probably feels like he owes Miles, so he has to help him out.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to see the 1930s Spider-Man voiced by Nicolas Cage making a reappearance.
Yeah.
Maybe he figured
Like-
out that Rubik's Cube by now.
Yes, hopefully. But that made me irrationally happy because of the Spider Gang from the first movie, he was my favorite. Part of it's because Nicolas Cage, but part of it's because it was so funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Noir, Spider-Man, Nicolas Cage.
His cape is billowing in the wind
Absolutely
that's
iconic.
non-existent all the time.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
I was disappointed up to this point that we weren't going to see any of the Spider Gang from the first movie outside of Gwen and Peter. But I realized that if they had decided to bring in the Spider Gang, the first movie, up before this point of the movie, it would have been too much and it would have dragged the film down.
Yeah, it would have been 3 hours.
It would have been 3 hours, and that's too
Yeah.
much. We're going to get that in the second movie. Again, this entire movie is just a giant build-up for part 3. And I'm okay with that. At the same time, you have to make your choices carefully. And I'm glad they decided to do this into 2 movies and take their time and do the story correctly, as opposed to cramming everything into a 3.5-hour movie.
Yeah, I'm glad that they decided to split this film into 2. And hopefully beyond the Spider-Verse, which, like you were mentioning, Tim,
I see what you did there.
is currently indefinitely delayed. But I'm hoping that things with the strike get sorted out by the end of the year. And hopefully we can try and have that film by the end of 2024, if not spring of
Yeah.
2025. Like,
Hopefully.
Yes.
but I think that was one of the first big films that got pushed. And, ooh, man, I was sad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, understandably.
Well, and it was so funny. Like I mentioned, Sarah and I went together to this film, and she didn't realize that there was a third movie coming out. And
Yeah.
she
Oh,
got a little
no.
upset at me for bringing her to a movie that left off on that kind of ending, not having very much resolution. She
Oh,
still gives me shit
no.
about it.
No, I had no idea. I did not know either. I had no clue. When I say I was spoiler free, I was 100% spoiler free. I have not been keeping up on movie news, nothing, because I just don't,
You're like, wait,
which
there's a
works
third
out
one
my
coming
favor
out?
most of the time. So yeah, I literally didn't know. We're sitting there. It's been basically 2.5 hours, and all of a sudden it's, oh, we're here, and then all of a sudden continued, and I literally just jaw drop, solid, and I was like, did they really just do that? They just did that. They really just did that. And I literally do not know. How did I not find out from someone somewhere in the world that it was a
No,
cliffhanger
same.
ending, that there was going to be a third one? I don't know how. Thank the Lord, because that takes the cake for the top cliffhanger to be continued movie for me of all time, which originally was the first chapter of the new It movie. I would have thought that one really early on, did not know that it was going to be 2 parts. And then it just ended and blew me away. It was one of the most magical experiences of my life. And this topped that all the way. I could not have been happier.
For sure.
Yeah, I've been waiting since June 1st. So I got a few
Yup.
months on you. And I'm definitely anxious to go see the new one on opening night too, hopefully.
Oh, 100%. That's going to be a request off of Workday so I can make sure I can get my damn ticket.
Yeah, pre-order that shit in advance.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I wanted to touch on as well the conversation with Gwen and her dad.
Oh, shit. You're right. Oh, wow. That would have been horrible. Because that really brings everything full circle. Okay, go, Chris. Go.
Oh, no, I just wanted to throw it out there and just like, hey, like, really loved it. Again, a lot of heart that we're seeing displayed by those characters. And again, that's why I love the story. I love the movie.
Yes. But when they hugged, the artwork was not red. It was still darker.
Was it
But
this
like the-
time? Okay.
It was. But now that you mentioned it, now that I think about it, the artwork was not red. It wasn't happy. It was more of okay enough, but they still haven't fully come to terms with each other yet.
Yeah.
They've come to good enough terms, but they've still got stuff to work through.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, they're at a good level of acceptance of one another, I feel. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I totally agree. And I think that was beautiful that it wasn't all sunshine and roses necessarily, because that's not how
Yeah.
life is.
No.
Indeed. Yeah. I also feel this is Gwen's moment of, okay, this is 1,000,000% my mess. I have to go fix it. I have to go fix things with my friend, and I need my friend to help me fix my mess with the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And then again, she's damned her pride and she's asked for help. She's gotten all of her friends from the previous movie, plus Pavat here, and I think there might have been one other person, but she's got all of the Spider Gang with her, and she's there to help save Miles, and that way they can help save his universe and then hopefully defeat the Spotlight. He has come full circle realizing that I don't need to be alone.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, Tim. Her character development has come full circle. Exactly.
Indeed. So then where is the character development going to come from movie 3? This movie is almost more so Gwen's movie than Miles' movie
Yeah.
in some aspects.
Yeah, we got Gwen's entire origin story within a minute and a half in the first act of the film. But yeah, my guess is that they set up both films to had the origins of both characters, and obviously they've both grown a lot in the second film. So I'm hoping that the third film just jumps directly into it because there's so much to address in the third film. We have
Yes,
three villains now
we do.
going into the third movie, all to be
Mhm.
resolved. That are all
Yes.
Yeah.
pretty Spider-Verse shattering.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Also, something I just realized, I feel in terms of the parental relationship, the mom is more present than the dad in this movie, and that's further exemplified by the fact that the mom is the one we talk to in Universe 42, as opposed to the father. That just
Yeah.
adds to that.
They set it up well.
They
Yep.
did. One other thing that we didn't really discuss. Did either of you have any flaws with the movie? If you think it's a perfect movie, that's totally acceptable. But no movie is necessarily perfect per se. As I said earlier, you choose to
Yep.
focus on some things, but when you focus on that thing, then you don't focus on something else. And like I said, if you focus on too many things, then you're sacrificing a good runtime versus taking your time with it. Is there anything that the movie didn't necessarily do right for you? I already said mine. It was the whole bit with Hobie's dialogue during the entire fight. I still, to this day, without subtitles, I have no idea what the fuck that man is saying.
I don't really have any nitpicks, to be honest with you. I think it is pretty flawless, in my opinion. Its runtime is perfect,
Yeah, at
honestly.
2.5 hours, it doesn't feel like a 2.5 hour movie. It's paced very well. I agree. I don't have any, but that doesn't mean something might not come up in the future. We also don't necessarily know exactly how that's going to play out because the first one was its own self-contained story. The second one is a build-up for the third movie, so we can't really criticize this one too heavily until the third one comes out, because then we can see what builds up here and how it pays off with movie 3, because what they're building off might not pay off for somebody in the third movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Blasphemy. What are you talking about, Tim?
Yes, I gotcha.
No, I hear what you're saying. I guess that I'm viewing the story as a collective one, but this movie doesn't fall into sequelitis. It doesn't have anything where I point at it and be like, yeah, that's a flaw.
Definitely.
Same. It's perfection. I love it.
Not a bunch of haters on this one. Sorry to let you down, guys.
Indeed. When part 3 comes out, we already know we have to do it.
Whenever that thing comes out.
Yes, because God only knows how long the strike is going to last. But when it comes out, we're doing it. It's a given.
I would love nothing more.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
This is still my movie of 2023. This is the best movie to come out thus far this year. And it's probably going to stay that way since Dune 2 also got delayed. And that was the only other movie that could potentially dethrone it. But since Dune 2 got delayed, this is my movie of the year. There's a reason it's rated 19 on IMDb for top 250 movies. Everybody should go watch it as soon as they can, just for understanding the cultural references, because this is going to be one of those movies 25 years from now that everybody's going to go, man, that movie still holds up as one of the greatest of all time.
Modern classic for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, the film takes place in 5 different worlds, and I loved how they were each visually engrossing, but then the audio aspect was also so different as well. I thought that alone a great feat to accomplish. And I'm totally there with you, Tim, on this being my film of the year. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon may challenge it. The only other film that might challenge it is Killers of the Flower Moon, but I don't think either one of those are going to dethrone it as my favorite film of the year, because I thought Oppenheimer might, but it didn't. Great film. But
yeah, no, Oppenheimer didn't, Barbie didn't, even though both were fantastic.
Yeah, great films. Yeah, Across the Spider-Verse, I've waxed on upon why I love the movie so much. Some of my favorite moments in cinema of the year, obviously, I have 6 of them in this movie alone. And the rewatchability factor for me is super high. The visually stunning, but also heartfelt film that knocks it out of the park for me.
For sure.
Yeah, just like with the first one. They're going to be some of my favorite movies for probably forever and ever. And just so masterfully done in every way imaginable, from story to art to music to the voice acting to just all of it. And I also agree with you. The rewatchability is so incredible. And I feel also with the first one, no matter how many times I'm going to watch it, I'm going to notice something new, something different, some teeny little detail. And I love that. And yeah, of course, going back into the hopefulness of it too, just everything about watching it felt like a good experience to me. Even in the upsetting or the sad or the hard parts, I was still happy to be watching it. And I love when a movie can give that because it isn't often that I can feel that way 100% through an entire movie. And boy, does this one deliver.
Yes.
Great thoughts. Thank you both so much for doing this. I've been very excited to, as we've discussed, dive into the best movie of 23
Yeah.
with you both for a while. And now that the film is out on a wide release, it's a great time to, Tasha, dive into it for the first time.
Finally catch up.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So it's a great time to put out this episode. So thank you both for pre-planning and making this happen.
Definitely.
Yes.
And that'll wrap up this episode of the Cinema Club. If you have not already, feel free to join the Cinema Club Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/cinema-club-TCC. And you can always listen to the podcast anywhere podcasts are found on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and anywhere else you hear podcasts. Please consider also leaving us a review on iTunes. It really does help us reach more listeners. And also feel free to invite more new members to the Cinema Club podcast if you are enjoying the content that we're putting out. Also wanted to share that you can email Nick or myself at the cinemaclubtcc@gmail.com if you would like to be on the podcast in the future. And again, finally, we are completely supported by you, our listeners. So if you are wanting to support the show financially, please consider clicking the support button on our website. You can check that out again at podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/cinema club. Thank you again so much for joining us, and we will see you on the next one.